Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this campus update as we conclude the spring 2022 term. We have a lot of news and territory to cover. We have a lot of wonderful news, and I will first share some highlights as well as various updates on multiple ongoing activities. I will then turn the program over to our Vice Chancellor for Administration and Finance, Kathleen Careless, who will provide us an update on our university budget. Provost Joseph Berger will then give us a much anticipated update on our strategic planning process, and we'll also hear updates from Dr. Joseph Cooper on behalf of Dr. Georgiana Melendez and the entire Restorative Justice Commission. I will conclude by providing wonderful highlights from our student athletes this spring. Our beacons continue to shine, continue to light the way, and continue to make us proud. University branding campaign. As you're all aware, our new branding campaign, UMass Boston for the Times, began officially a few weeks ago. We have received wonderful positive feedback on the campaign, the new logo, and our students have embraced with gusto the new message and the overall look, the overall feel, the ethos and the eidos the campaign conveys. As an example of the pride and gratitude our students have expressed to us about this new campaign, I share with you just one of many communications we received. This is from a graduate student who wrote to me last week. Quote, "Chancellor, I am reaching out to let you know that I sincerely appreciate UMass Boston's For the Time campaign. It eloquently captures who we are, what we aspire to be, and what makes UMass Boston such a unique, special place. The messaging is needed now more than ever." End of quote. Please note that the campaign is entirely funded in the campus FY22 budget as part of an administrative efficiency effort that reallocated previously disparate marketing dollars into central marketing, allowing for the overall planning, the overall development of the campaign, and our increasing buying power with paid media partners, including broadcast TV, local print, billboards, as well as digital media. My enormous gratitude to Vice Chancellor Megan Sullivan and her entire Beacon team for their efforts over the last 12 months preparing for this proud and important moment for our university, and the many around campus who've assisted, including our student actors, with the rollout and enthusiasm, excitement, and pride our students showed in the university. It was all so very inspiring, and for that, I am grateful. Enrollment. More excellent Beacon news. I am happy to share that we ended the fall 2022 cycle with an 18 increase in completed applications for first-year undergraduate students and are up 14% in deposits. On the slide here, you see the breakdown of our deposit increases by residency. As you can see, we have achieved significant increases from last fall in deposits from international students and our out-of-state students. We have noticed an increased interest across almost all of our schools and colleges, and we have seen the greatest increase in interest in exercise and health science, liberal arts, management, and school for the environment. These are strong numbers. They're very positive numbers indeed. Soon, we're going to transition to new student orientation, and we will once again need your help onboarding this new class and helping them make a smooth transition to campus, to their new lives as beacons this coming fall. My congratulations and heartfelt gratitude to Dr. John Drew, Vice Chancellor for Enrollment Management, and his entire team for their extraordinary efforts in a very, very challenging and difficult admissions and recruitment environment. A job well done. Thank you. New deans. As you read earlier today in an announcement from our provost, we are pleased, we are happy to welcome yet another leader to our campus. Dr. Bo Fernhold will join us this August as the new dean of the Manning College of Nursing and Health Science and as professor of exercise health science. Dr. Fernhold just completed his 11th year as dean of the College of Applied Health Sciences at the University of Illinois, Chicago. Dr. Fernhold will be a tremendous asset to the new endowed Manning College and to the entire Beacon community. I ask the entire UMass Boston family to extend a warm Beacon welcome to Dr. Fernhold as he joins our community very, very shortly. Of course, as previously announced, Dr. Fernhold will be joining Dr. Venki Venkatachalam, who joins us in July as the brand new dean of the College of Management and distinguished professor of management science and information systems. Dr. Venki is currently in his 8th year as dean of the Become with an M, not with an N, School of Business at the University of South Dakota. A warm, warm Beacon welcome to Dean Venki. The provost and I are grateful for the extraordinary service Interim Dean DeMarco and Interim Dean Bando have provided over the years for the leadership, serving as interim deans of the Manning College and the College of Management, respectively. Thank you, thank you, thank you. A few other updates. Thank you to those who attended the campus-wide session on air quality and campus construction on April 27th, and my thanks to Vice Chancellor Curlis and her entire team for their endeavors and their presentation on these topics. If you are unable to attend and would like to view the recording, you can find it in our university website. Look under Master Plan, Reports, and Presentations. We continue to take a multi-layered approach to keeping our campus safe. As part of that work, we are conducting additional air quality testing this month in the Wheatley, McCormack, and Healy buildings. There are also additional supplemental high efficiency particulate air, so-called HEPA air filtration units being deployed to selected spaces that have shown low airflow. As per our communication last Friday, we have reinstituted a masking requirement inside all buildings on campus, effective this past Monday. While I'm happy to say on-campus transmission has remained low and our very, very high vaccinated population continues to have strong protection against severe disease, we nevertheless will continue to follow CDC guidance and best practice. Thank you to all for your cooperation and your willingness to continue the ever important work of keeping our campus community safe. In a couple of different meetings last week, a number of you, dear colleagues, have expressed your concerns about recently proposed legislation on the matter of a study pertinent to the Mount Ida campus. Thank you for sharing those concerns, which I too share. And please be assured that within seconds of learning of this possible development, I have been in direct discussions with the chancellor at UMass Amherst and as well as with President Meehan's office on this matter. And I will continue to be a part of any discussions going forward. It is important to note that this matter at Mount Ida is an unfunded mandate. The legislature is not putting any resources for this proposed study, and there remains a lot, an enormous amount to be explored and to be assessed. Details are still to be determined regarding a basic feasibility study of this project, but please be assured that UMass Boston, by design and by necessity, will be included as an important stakeholder in said feasibility study. Thank you. I am pleased to report that just yesterday, I had an enormously productive visit to Capitol Hill, where I proudly waved the beacon flag before our congressional delegation. Our Congressman, Stephen Lynch, reiterated to me personally, my one-on-one meeting with him, his full-throated support for helping us continue to access federal funding to ensure UMass Boston becomes, in his words, the crown jewel of the UMass system. Words which I applauded. Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley and I discussed our shared commitment to making UMass Boston the leading anti-racist public health promoting campus, and we discussed very interesting ideas with the Congresswoman on matters pertinent to early childhood education and what UMass Boston be doing in that domain. Finally, U.S. Ways and Means Chairman Richard Neal convened the entire Commonwealth's federal representatives and U.S. senators, and I updated them on the transformational research, teaching, and engagement happening at UMass Boston today and moving forward, and their continued support for a number of our initiatives. I concluded with, if we didn't have UMass Boston, we would have to invent it. I'm happy to turn over the platform to Kathleen Hurlis, Vice Chancellor for Administration and Finance, for her overview of our budget. Kathleen, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Marcelo. Thank you for sharing those updates with our campus community. The next part of today's session is regarding the university's budget. So I'm going to start with an update around fiscal 22's budget. Back in December of 2021, at the last campus update where the budget was discussed, it was indicated that the university was on track to have a balanced budget for this year. I'm happy to report as we come back here now in May that we're still in the same position. We are expecting a balanced budget for the current year, with all the hard work that everybody in the campus community has done to get us to this point. We recently completed the university's third quarter projection, which included the financial results of the university through March 31st, 2022. And we are on track to be balanced. We had started, as I mentioned last December, originally with the budget of having a surplus as we came out of the pandemic and came back to campus. We had updated that back in the first quarter to be balanced, and we remain there today. So we have seen, as we look at this year's financial results, we're seeing that we're coming out of the pandemic. And we went through a time when we were operating remote, and now we've come back to campus. So when we looked for fiscal 22, our tuition and fees was less than what we had originally planned when we had been looking a year ago. We made those adjustments last fall, and the trend has continued. So that we've got that worked into our plan. We're seeing that auxiliaries, some of the activities that are on campus, have begun to recover. They've been a little bit slower than we had anticipated when we were planning last spring, but we're on track to also have that within our budget. Our state appropriation has increased this year. The state has funded the collective bargaining, cost of living adjustments that have been negotiated, and it also has appropriated additional funds for mental health so that we could continue to support some of the mental health needs that have come out of the pandemic for our students and for our campus community. And then last but not least, we also have seen correspondingly as we've come to successful agreement around our collective bargaining agreements, that our salary and fringe costs have gone up as we have implemented the raises that have been negotiated, and our non-personnel costs have increased as we return to campus and begun to incur some of those costs that take place when we are on campus, as well as we spent $6 million of institutional support stimulus money this year on additional support to students to help them pay off some of the accounts receivable balances that were on the books for cost of studies. For the next year, for fiscal 23, for the period of time that runs from July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2023, we are well underway with this process. The budget is approved by the Board of Trustees. The board has already started that work. They approved the mandatory tuition and fees at the April meeting. This was a change from previous years where that approval often didn't come till June or July. With it now approved in April, we're able to finalize the cost of attendance for students, so students can plan and work towards what the university will cost next year. We did for this year have a 2.5% increase in tuition. This is the first tuition increase since fiscal 20. So we had 2 years of tuition with no increase, and then this year 2.5% increase on all the different categories of tuition that we have, and an increase in the mandatory technology fee of $100 per year to help cover some of the costs associated with the increased cost of technology as we become more reliant on it with remote modalities and some of the work coming out of the pandemic. The board is scheduled at their June meeting to approve the overall campus budget. So they will then take up the entire university budget, of which our campus budget is part, and that will be going for approval very early in June at the June 2nd meeting. This will allow us to put our general operating budgets in place for the start of the fiscal year. So departments will be able to have information regarding that portion of the budget. And then the budgets around restricted and some of the other types of funds will be coming on the schedules that we've had in the past few years. And then we will take a look at the campus update in the fall after all of our enrollment results are known. We're happy to plan for next year that the budget is balanced. So we are looking to, as we come out of the pandemic, continue that glide path of out of a time when we lost a lot of revenue because of COVID to getting back on track financially with our full activities on campus. We've been fortunate. We've had a large amount of stimulus money help tide us over and help us along that path as we've come back from the pandemic. And next year is no exception. I will talk a little bit about some state stimulus money that we've got to help us. Overall for next year, we are planning a budget at $470 million. That is down $11 million from the current year, primarily because we are going to see the effect of no longer having the levels of stimulus money that had been present in the current year's budget available for next year. Our tuition and fees are increasing by almost 5% next year, recovering towards pre-COVID levels. Certainly, I would echo the chancellor's remarks regarding our first-year student enrollment. Very, very positive results. We have our enrollment management team, along working with the rest of the community, has really brought in a great class for the next upcoming year. We've got an increased amount of out-of-state and international students, as well as an in-state is held its own too. So that's very positive, and we're now working on looking at returning students, the results for that, as well as our graduate enrollment too. State appropriation next year, we're also planning to be very positive. The state has made available to the campus one-time ARPA stimulus money in the amount of $8 million. So they've begun to take some of that federal stimulus money that's available at the state level and roll some of that out to higher education. Our campus will benefit $8 million of money next year for that, as well as their funding collective bargaining. So certainly a very different picture than a few rounds back where the state was not funding collective bargaining. Here they fully funded our collective bargaining agreements and increased the appropriation accordingly. We are going to next year have a decline in non-personnel costs, primarily, as I said, because of we had spent in money this year regarding some additional one-time institutional support for students for accounts receivable that was $6 million. So that was a one-time kind of expense. So we won't have that next year. Additionally, we made some one-time investments this year on some strategic initiatives that would be one-time only. And so those will not be being rolled forward next year as well. We have we do have the state stimulus money available for continued support next year. The federal stimulus money that we've had both for direct awards to students as well as institutional support, that is going to be scheduled to be done this fiscal year. So we pretty much will be on target to have those funds fully expended to both support our students with direct grants, as well as be able to, from the university side, be able to use that money to help replace some of the lost revenue that we had coming out of the pandemic. And the other new thing for next year with fiscal 23 is that this proceeds from the Dorchester Bay City project have been incorporated into the budget. So this is a project that the university has been working on with UMBA and with Accordia partners. It is scheduled to be permitted during the next fiscal year. And with the permitting would come of $192 million to up to $235 million to the university. That would be able to be used to pay for the rest of our SDQD project, pay off some of our debt service to decrease those costs, as well as some increased interest earnings on funds that will remain available as the campus completes the strategic planning updates its campus master plan and figures out how it would deploy remaining proceeds from that project. Just a slightly more bit of context here, and definitely we'll make this presentation available so you can feel free to review it at your leisure. There's a lot of material here at one time. We do have federal stimulus money in the budget for the 4th year of this year. So this one is directly made from the state. The state made it available from proceeds they received from the federal government for stimulus money. So the state's made that support to higher ed, and they also are working with campuses around any number of other supports that may be forthcoming in the areas of mental health and physical plant improvement. So we're definitely working with the state around those kinds of activities that may benefit not only UMass Boston, but other institutions of higher education across the Commonwealth. As I just had mentioned, we are including Dorchester Bay City permitting proceeds in the budget for next year. So that will allow us to be able to have some benefit to our budget moving forward. When that project permits, on the revenue side, we've started to see enrollment now. We've got very good news here on this front. Great news on the new students. And then we also are we plan for recovering. You may have recalled when we were back in the pandemic, we missed a whole year of international students. People couldn't come to the United States. They couldn't come study here at UMass Boston. Our international student pool practically evaporated. So we've built that into the cohorts of students so we can plan for that. And that's not causing a problem for our budget anymore because we've been able to adjust and make plans. Our auxiliary revenue next year is planned to continue to improve. We've had more and more activities come back to campus. Our residence halls are full. We're expecting to have a robust year here, and really that will help the university's financial picture, as well as continued strong support from the state. On the expense side, as I mentioned, we've got our salaries are reflective of our collective bargaining agreements. We do have non-personnel costs that we've reduced the one-time things from this year, but we are keeping an eye on those kinds of costs that have come back because we're no longer remote, and inflation. Inflation has been out there. The Commonwealth has made some arrangements for inflation in the appropriation it has to the overall university for next year, but it is something we're keeping an eye on to see how that's going to affect our planning. And then last but not least, I think is the Chancellor mentioned, we continue to work with the UMass system leaders and state leaders, federal leaders to engage in multiple ways for further support of our campus in many areas, including mental health and physical plant needs. There is some work to be done as we move forward. I mean, we've been, before the pandemic hit, we've all worked really hard to have successive positive and increasing operating margins that position the campus to put that structural deficit that we had back in the mid-2010s behind us. Then the pandemic struck. We've talked about this in previous sessions. It really created havoc on our budget. It pulled out a lot of revenue. We have received over $46 million of institutional stimulus during this time period, and that's helped us continue to operate as a campus. But it also has, it's been one-time money. So it's masked the fact that we had 2 years where we weren't able to raise tuition at all, and we had a reduction in international students. So now as we take a look at where we are today and where we may be heading in the future, if we just took everything that's going on here today and we rolled it forward to next year, we are seeing that a new structural deficit is developing. So we're keeping an eye on that and we're planning for it. So we will be looking at ways to really increase our revenue. We've seen some real positive activity in that regard, as well as looking to manage our costs in the personnel and non-personnel areas. To be a little bit more specific about that, we'll first talk about the, just to sort of talk a little bit about the deficit here. When you look at the one-time federal stimulus money, this chart here, if you look at the green line, this shows our revenue, and it includes not only all the revenue that we normally would have as a university, but also the federal stimulus money. And then the expenses are the red line. So you'll see that we've had some time where the revenue has been able to support our expenses because we've been able to have stimulus money. If we move forward to the next slide, if we took out that stimulus money, you'll see we were right around, we're holding our own, we're doing okay. And now we're starting to see some divergence here where the stimulus money goes away and the costs come back. So this is the gap we're working to close. And to be specific, this is a multifaceted approach. Just like we've worked on COVID, that there's not one single thing that helps us be safe from COVID. There's not one single thing that's going to just magically solve our budget. So we're looking at 3 major areas to focus on. The first is revenue. So lots of positive things going on the revenue front. We do have some one-time money for next year. We've been able to increase fees for next year for a low rate, but I mean, just that we have that on track to be able to support some of the costs that are associated with providing the instruction. And then we also are increasing our enrollment for out-of-state and national students, as well as activities that are here on campus on a variety of fronts. For workforce, for our people, I think we would acknowledge that for all of us, we've been hiring people, but it's just taking us longer to hire people because of a variety of things we're seeing in the marketplace. So we do have, it takes us longer to hire people. We have vacancy savings. So we aren't trying to tell people we have to keep positions open or we can't hire, we're having a hiring freeze, but we do have a longer period of time, and that's resulted in savings. So we built that into the budget just so that we can have that to plan to help us get balanced. We're continuing to reorganize ourselves to be more efficient and more effective, particularly as we do our strategic planning and we look at how do we want to position ourselves to focus on the things that are going to be most important to UMass Boston for the next decade. And then another area that we're looking at is we've had some great success with our university advancement group and many of our colleges in raising money for endowed scholarships and also for student financial aid. And we're going to be working on putting procedures in place so that this can become much easier for folks to tap into and use, as well as that, in the case of for professorships, some of those are budget relieving. And so we'll build that into the budget as part of our solution as well. On the non-personnel side, we've been continuing some of the work of looking at different areas of the university on how we can be more effective. Over the past year, we took a look at technology. We had Huron Consulting come in and help us take a look. And I thank everyone who participated in that study. I know they went out and interviewed people across the university. And because of everybody's input and comments and feedback, we were able to come up with some good recommendations for the university to consider. So we're going to begin taking a look at that and implementing some of the selected report recommendations there, as well as continuing to partner with the Unified Procurement Services teams on how to increase efficiency and cost savings in the technology area. UPST has gone out and helped make some relationships with vendors so that we can still do business with many of the vendors we've historically done business with at reduced cost. So we want to tap into that so that faculty and staff and students can still get the same level of equipment and service that they've had in the past, but it can cost less because we're harnessing the buying power of the entire University of Massachusetts. We are looking to pay off some long-term debt with some of the proceeds of Dorchester Bay City. This will reduce some of our interest costs, some of the costs of debt service, and so that will be budget relieving. As I mentioned, endowment and gift funds. We're going to be looking at those if there's opportunities for some of those to be budget relieving. Working with individuals areas where warranted. I mean, these become fact-specific kinds of situations, but really many of the gifts we receive and some of the endowment funds that have been raised are by definition to be budget relieving. And so we would want to do that. If there are some things that are additive, then those are additive. So, I mean, I would stress it's not a one size fits all with these, but there are some opportunities to be budget relieving that we'll be taking advantage of. And then last but not least, one of the other things we're going to look at next year is we did pilot this year, as you may recall, between the end of the fall semester and the beginning of the spring semester, some additional remote operations where folks were able to do their work away from campus, and we were able to save hundreds of thousands of dollars in utility costs during that time period because we were operating remotely. So we're going to continue to look at those kinds of things, be talking with folks about that as the year progresses, about whether during some certain holiday periods and times when there's very low people on campus compared to the rest of the year, that we might be able to get some additional utility savings from operating remotely. So I did want to just provide information to the campus community around institutional stimulus money. I mean, questions have come up about, well, how does stimulus money affect campus? How much have we had? So just briefly, we as a university have had $46 million, and we're going to have it all spent by the end of this fiscal year. So it's supported our COVID relief efforts. It's supported lost revenue. It's supported improvements we needed to make here on campus to operate safely. We've also had $31 million of awards that were made directly to our students. So part of the whole federal stimulus money program was that there was, in addition to providing money to universities across the country, there also was money direct to students to help students weather the pandemic. So we've put out $31 million worth of aid there. And I would just say, John Drew in Enrollment Management and the Financial Aid Office and the folks in the Bursar's office, they've all worked really hard to get this money pushed out through multiple rounds of grants to really ensure that our students could receive monies at times when it was really desperately needed. So overall, we've had $77 million that has come in to the campus community from the various rounds of federal stimulus money. And you'll see here on the chart, there's been 3 rounds of federal money, and then we've also had some monies from the state that are there. So that's here for you to take a look at. We have a whole section on the website regarding stimulus money. So if this is something that piques your interest and you want to know a little bit more, by all means, feel free to take a look at it. You can reach out to me or my team if there's any other questions you might have about it. And lastly, I just would want to briefly let the community know about a couple strategic initiatives that we have going on to help us with our budgeting for the long-term financial sustainability of the university. The first is activities-based budgeting. And here I'd like to give a big shout out to our provost, Joe Berger, who's partnering with me around updating the university's budget model. So we're looking to move to an activities-based budgeting model, which this allows the revenue and expenses of the universities to be allocated where the activity actually takes place, as compared to our current incremental budgeting system, where we're taking what we have and just tweaking it around the edges every year. So this is a multiple year process to get such a change in place. We've had a steering committee this year that's consisted of deans and faculty and administrators who've been meeting to work on guiding principles and help to begin to design the model. I'm happy to say that much of that work has progressed very well, and we're almost to the point where we're going to have a whole model that we'll be able to look at with the committee and then begin to unveil to the campus community. So stay tuned for that, because that's going to be forthcoming, and that's going to really help us really think strategically about our budget and where we're going to put our resources. So, and then we will plan to run our current budgeting process with this new model concurrently for a period of time so that we can see how it works, make sure we can educate folks, answer questions, do training, and really get everybody ready to do it. But I'd encourage you, if you do have other colleagues at other universities that use this type of model, talk to them about it, how it works. And I think we're learning from others. We're trying to take, there's not one magical activities-based budgeting model, but what we're doing is we're taking principles and we're going to apply here to UMass Boston to figure out how it's best going to help us here at our university move forward in a very positive way. So, I would just give a big thanks to everybody who's been on the steering committee. They have brought their knowledge, their expertise, their passion, and it's really helped us as we move forward to start to get this in place. The other strategic initiative I'd like to mention is that regarding tuition and fees. And here we have there's been a working group here that has been working with the registrar's office, the bursar's office, the deputy chancellor's office to really streamline and simplify our billing for our students and also increase the flexibility in scheduling. So what we're doing with this is individual online courses are no longer considered to be continuing education. Instead, they're administered as part of the regular college offerings, and it's treated as a different kind. It's a modality choice for a student. A student can choose an in-person class or they can choose an online class, and it's all going to be the same price. It allows financial aid to be applied to all classes. You can readily determine what the cost of your classes are. And this will be in the spring and the fall. So we are ready to have that take place for the next academic year. We also are looking with the evening, weekend, offsite courses. They'll also be part of the regular sessions. And then we'll have a special session for the true continuing ed special programs, kinds of like all online programs, and working with deans in different colleges to really get these kinds of programs stood up as well. So the goal here is that this is just simpler for people to understand. It's more, you can predict it with more regularity, and just will help us not only as we move towards an activities-based budgeting process, but just in trying to just be able to advise and figure out what schedules are and how to progress in degrees. So I think there's been this project has been underway for numerous years. We're finally got this over the finish line, and it's going to be there. So a big thank you to everybody. I'm very grateful that this has been able to be implemented for the next academic year. And we do have, I will mention and wrap up my remarks with just this last slide regarding the capital budget. I've spoken today about the operating budget. We all are also working on the capital budget. That will be completed by July 1st. You can expect another time where we'll unveil some information regarding the capital budget. We are expecting for this next year, the SDQD project will continue to be the university's largest project. They are going to beginning to start filling up the quad with dirt in the fairly near term, and we plan for July 2023 completion of the whole project. We do plan that the plaza will be done for next academic year. So there'll be places for folks to walk around and connect with our academic buildings in a way that's much more permanent and less of a construction zone than what we have currently this fiscal year. And then last, we also will be looking for capital spending to address issues related to compliance. We have some Title IX issues that we're going to be addressing in our athletics area. We've got deferred maintenance and critical repairs. The state has been very generous in funding deferred maintenance needs on the campus, that then the campus matches some of the costs, and those projects are going to be moving along. So we've got new air handlers in the library, for example, being funded through this program. We're going to continue to invest in air quality and do what we need to do to ensure that the campus is safe in the area of COVID, and then also work with folks around equipment needs that may be needed. So the capital budget is coming together as well. I will, as I said, have more information on that as we move along this spring. So I think that sort of wraps up the budget part of the presentation. If you do have questions, please feel free to refer back to the presentation when it's put up on the website. Feel free to contact me with any further questions you may have, and we'll be continuing these dialogues as we move forward over the next several months. So I'm going to now turn over to Provost Joe Berger, who's going to talk about strategic planning update.
Thank you so much, Kathleen. It's a pleasure to be able to provide you with the latest update on our strategic planning efforts, which after a year of incredible activity is now coming to a close. So we've gone over this process several times in previous campus updates. Right now, we are now at the point that we have a preliminary draft of the strategic plan, and that we will be sharing next week with the entire campus community, where we will have both a web-based form and a dedicated email address where we can get feedback from all of you. We'll also be having some targeted discussions. For example, I'll be providing a draft of the strategic plan to the Budget Long Range Planning Committee of Faculty Council. We have a meeting next week, and to get some specific input and feedback from them. I would like to emphasize on behalf of myself and my partner, Deputy Chancellor Garrett Smith, who has helped lead this endeavor, that this is a high-level strategic plan. It is a 10-year strategic plan that will emphasize details for the first 5 years and then be less specified for the next 5 years. But once we have the high-level plan developed and we formally launch it in September, as we go along, that's when the work actually really begins, because it needs to be a living, breathing, activity-oriented plan in which we're all engaged in implementing and helping drive the university forward. So what's in the plan? We have 5 cross-cutting strategic commitments and 5 strategic priorities. The cross-cutting strategic commitments all are woven throughout the 5 strategic priorities. So of course, we have made a firm commitment to be an anti-racist and health promoting institution. This is particularly important as we continue to deal with the twin pandemics, the long and deeply embedded pandemic of systemic racism and the more recent public health crisis of COVID-19, both of which continue to persist. So more than ever, this requires that we have teaching, learning, research, translational, and community engagement vehicles to address these crises. Community university engagement, it is essential that we continue our reciprocal partnerships with the multiple and diverse communities that we are engaged, and particularly locally, right here on Columbia Point, Dorchester, Boston, Greater Boston, and beyond. We are committed to being continuously improving, using evidence as the basis to improve in the areas of strength, to get better and better, and to help us address the areas in which we recognize that we can still strengthen and address previously unaddressed challenges going forward. And with that, we must be responsible, sustainable, and responsive with the use of our resources, our resource generation, utilization, and allocation systems and processes that will enable effective, efficient, transparent, and sustainable use of all types of resources. These efforts will be aligned with and enhanced by the activities-based budgeting that Kathleen was talking about. And that we must, in all of our work, be mission-driven. We here at UMass Boston are here because we are mission-driven. And each day, as we study, as we work, research, do our engagements on and off campus, we are driven by the mission to advance our values-driven work and serve our communities. We do not believe that the organization's mission and vision are statements that we just write and merely post on the website. Rather, they are bold statements that drive all decisions and establish direction for our organization. It is important that as we implement the strategic plan, that we have deep and frequent engagement with our mission to keep us on track. In terms of the strategic priorities, first and foremost, holistic student success. Our students are the foundation for why the university exists. We do have a multifaceted mission, but we will not exist without our students. So within this approach, we are defining student success to encompass all of our students, undergraduate and graduate, and that we must ensure equitable academic outcomes, ensure career success and alumni engagement, emphasize the importance of community cultural wealth, and deepen sense of belonging for our students, provide holistic advising and support services, and provide supportive pathways to and through UMass Boston. High impact scholarship. It's important that our research and scholarship advance the mission of the university. As part of that, we are establishing and advancing 4 grand scholarly challenges, which are problems or opportunities of great magnitude and importance that, if addressed, will positively impact individuals, families, communities, and society. Our grand scholarly challenges focus on areas where UMass Boston is a leader among peer institutions and advances ambitious, practical solutions that impart real impact. The draft grand scholarly challenges are climate equity and urban coastal areas, health equity, cells to societies, education for the future, and advancing a just society, local and global dimensions. In doing so, and beyond those grand scholarly challenges, we are committing ourselves to promote, enhance, and support existing and emerging excellence, rigor, curiosity, and creativity throughout our research and scholarly activities. It is important that our research and scholarship enhance our role as a public university of and for the city that engages with our community in all of these activities. Enriching our human core, we are committed to the continuous improvement in all aspects of our work, particularly with the support and the development for the success of all faculty and staff. So we renew our commitments to continuous professional development, mentorship, growth opportunities, quality of work life, training, and effective and productive processes that will generate results for all of us. We will emphasize health, well-being, justice, diversity, equity, and inclusion for all of our faculty and staff. Expansive enrollment programs and partnerships. We are committed to aligning resources to support the people, processes, and technology that will help all members of our community thrive in sustainable ways, and thus we will align growth-generating activities such as enrollment, program development, with other strategic priorities in order to more effectively deliver our unique and critical mission. These activities include enhanced enrollment management strategies, improved service delivery, and academic program development that aligns with career opportunities for students. And finally, reimagining campus space and location. UMass Boston has tremendous locational endowment, being situated at the heart of world-class Boston and sitting upon this magnificent harbor. We exist of and for the city, of and for the times. And the completion of the new campus quadrangle project, along with the new master campus plan that is being developed in concordance with the strategic plan, will allow us to more fully realize the power of our campus going forward. And so it is important that we realize these commitments and priorities, but not without input from all of you. I do want to say that one of the questions that we received prior to this session was from one of our graduate students who would like us to address how we plan to improve support for graduate students over the long term. And we, throughout this strategic plan and in work with other campus leaders such as the Restorative Justice Commission, are very dedicated to continuing to grow and enhance our support for graduate students. I'm pleased that we have a tentative agreement with GEO subject to ratification, and we are embedding graduate student success throughout both the cross-cutting commitments and our priorities. And I want to emphasize that for the first time, we are making very explicit in our commitment to holistic student success that includes both undergraduate and graduate students as key members of our community, and we're proud to do that. Speaking of being an anti-racist and health-promoting institution, it's my pleasure to turn the program over to my good colleague, Dr. Joseph Cooper, to talk about the important work that the Restorative Justice Commission has been doing this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Provost Berger. Good afternoon, campus community. I hope everyone is doing well today. Delighted to provide you an update on behalf of the Restorative Justice Commission. And I also want to make sure to acknowledge all of our commission members: Georgiana Melendez, Rosalind Negron, Crystal Gale O'Neill, Paul Watanabe, Annetta Argares, Lisa Gonzalez, Camila de la Vega, Rachel Winters, Katie McMullen, Janessa Edens, Celine Voyard, Jerisa Rodriguez, Suha Ballout, Tracy Beard, Cuff Ferguson, Muna Killingback, Tony Vandermeer, and Kareem Wade. For those who don't know our commission, we meet on a monthly basis. We have 6 subcommittees: curriculum and pedagogy, campus and community engagement, university policies and practices, research, training and development, and budget. We're delighted to announce that throughout this academic year, we have worked with and endorsed 6 proposals. The Ombuds Office, which has been approved and is in progress and being established here in the near future, will help with conflict mediation on campus and healthy relationships within and across departments. A research fellowships proposal, which will focus on our ethnic institutes and furthering resources in those areas. Native American and Indigenous Peoples Restorative proposal, which also involves a land acknowledgement statement, as well as engaging in improved race relations with the tribes within this region. A campus climate assessment, which will include more nuanced data collection along various demographic and psychographic data and disaggregated so that we can have more targeted and effective interventions. A College of Management mapping out diversity, equity, and racial justice proposal has preliminarily been reviewed and voted on and is in the process of being updated for next steps. And then the Undoing Racism training, which involves the Africana Studies Department, Undoing Racism Assembly, Faculty Staff Union, Center for Innovative Teaching, and Office of Faculty Development. Similarly, this proposal has already been voted on and is going through the process of final updates in order for next steps to receive RJC support. So these are just a few of a number of proposals that we have advanced to this stage. We're working very hard. We want to encourage each and every one of you to reach out to RJC members to provide ideas and to collaborate on various efforts that will help our institution become more anti-racist and more health promoting in all of our policies, practices, and outcomes. At this time, I will pass the session back over to our Chancellor, Marcelo Suarez Orozco.
Thank you, Dr. Cooper, and my gratitude as well to Dr. Melendez and to all our colleagues on the RJC for this work, the care, and the compassion with which the Commission has made its work and its proposals. I want, in closing, to name with great pleasure some of the exquisite highlights from the world of Beacon athletics. Our lacrosse team won its second straight Little East Conference regular season and tournament titles, advancing to the NCAA tournament. Go Beacons! On the track, freshman sprinter Dorinda Okorji became the first Beacon to win gold at the LEC championship meet since 2018, as she dominated the 100-meter dash. Our men's tennis team claimed the program's fifth Little East Conference Tournament championship on Saturday with a 5-0 win over Salem State, advancing to the NCAA tournament. Good luck to our team tomorrow. Also of note, our baseball team qualified for their 17th straight Little East Conference tournament. Good luck to our baseball team, and congratulations to all our student athletes for your achievements this year, and thanks, warm thanks to all our coaches, to all our colleagues in athletics, and a special thanks to Dr. Jackie Schumann, our Director of Athletics and Recreation, for her exemplary leadership. As we conclude this academic year, I'd like to offer my deep appreciation and gratitude to all of you, my colleagues, for all that you do on behalf of our students and their success in the classroom, on the athletic fields, in life, en la vida. Muchas gracias. You all know commencement ceremonies will take place on May 27th at the Boston Convention Center, and we're eager to have Mayor Michelle Wu join us as our commencement speaker. Her journey will certainly resonate with our students, with our graduates. She shared with me how much she is looking forward to joining the celebration with and honoring our UMass Boston class of 2022. I look forward to seeing all of you at commencement, and I hope that you continue to stay safe in the coming summer months. For our next campus update, we plan to be in person, not in Mundo Zoom, in person. Thank you for joining us, and please continue to stay safe.